Today is the second episode of our series on exercise, and we're talking all about resistance training. Here we go. Hi, I'm Jessica Valant, a physical therapist and Pilates teacher, and I want to bring science-based knowledge, empathy, courage, support, love, and hopefully some fun to the journeys we have with our bodies. There is hope and strength in your body, and my goal is to help you find it. Welcome back to our series on exercise. So we have discussed Pilates. We covered the benefits and some of the myths around Pilates and how you can get started and how I personally incorporate it into my own life and my routines. And now today we are talking about resistance training. I absolutely love to talk about resistance training because it is just simply not used enough in most people at home, with home workouts especially. So I really want to talk today about the benefits, about why you absolutely need to be doing resistance training every single week, and also how you can start in a really easy way. So first, let's cover what resistance training is. So what that means. Resistance training means that you are using some kind of resistance in order to build muscle mass. And that resistance can be a variety of things. It can actually be your body weight. So sometimes just using your body weight as resistance is a great way to get that resistance training. It can also be springs. We use springs on the reformer, and that can be a type of resistance training. It can be resistance bands. That's something that many people are familiar with. So resistance bands and resistance loops. It can be weight machines at the gym. It can be cable machines as well, if you're familiar with those. And then what I really want to get into today, and what we'll talk a lot about, are dumbbells and barbells. So those simple small dumbbells that you can be using at home. But all of those things are really incorporated into what we call resistance training. So I like to give some examples here so that you can really start to visualize how these different workouts can be separated but also used together. Because if you are familiar with Pilates at all, or if you've done any, you know we are down on the mat most of the time. And of course we are using our body. Our bodies are what are moving as we do certain exercises. And usually we're doing it against gravity, or we're simply laying on our back and using our muscles to move our body. But it is not considered resistance training for the most part because of our orientation to gravity. We're either laying down, we're on our sides, we're on all fours. Resistance training for the most part is going to be most effective when it is done standing up against gravity. So for example, you're doing a squat. So let's say you're doing a squat or a lunge in standing. So you are using your body weight as the resistance. You lower down slowly, you press up slowly against gravity, and that's using your body weight for the resistance. If you start to add a dumbbell or a barbell, then obviously we're adding more resistance. It's adding more of a challenge. And sometimes in various exercises, whether it be Pilates or even in yoga, we will add weights and add some resistance training to those exercises. It's kind of a fun way to throw in a different challenge, to throw in some different ways to move our bodies. But for today, I really want to separate resistance training into true resistance training exercises. And I want to keep that separate from Pilates. So when I talk about how we're going to incorporate this into your regular weekly workout routine, I want you to think of it as kind of two different categories. So your Pilates would be one category. Again, we talked about that last week, and you can always go back to that episode to learn more about the amazing things that Pilates can do for your body, because there are so many things, and you will definitely build muscle doing Pilates and many different types of workouts. But again, today, when we discuss resistance training, it is a special way to build more muscle mass and to keep you really functional. And it is absolutely a vital part of every full workout program. So, to keep it simple, when you're picturing different moves that we might discuss when doing a resistance program, again, to really simplify it, you can picture things such as a squat or a lunge or a bicep curl or pressing weights over your head into a shoulder press. And then many times we combine those types of movements and we'll do what we call squat press, where you come down into a squat, holding weights, and then press the weights up overhead. Things like a chest press when you have done one of those or seen other people do them. So those are some very basic resistance training moves that we can do with either dumbbells, barbells, sometimes with the bands, sometimes even using your body weight, or even with cans of beans. If you've been in a physical therapy program, you know many times we'll tell you, hey, just use a bottle of water or a can of beans to start. But those are some of those basic resistance training exercises that you can kind of picture as we're talking through things today. There are also different ways to train when we are looking at resistance training. So sometimes people can get caught up in this idea of how many reps, how many sets, all of those kind of things. And I want to discuss why they're used in different ways. So one way to work resistance training is for endurance, and that would mean you're doing higher reps at a lower weight. If you have ever done a bar class and they're using those small 1 or 2 pound arm weights at the beginning and doing a lot of reps, that is going to have more of the goal of muscular endurance, okay? Trying to get your muscles to work a longer period of time at a lighter weight. It's almost like using your body weight for resistance. So that would be endurance. Then we can work on muscle hypertrophy as well. That simply means that we are actually trying to build the muscle fibers themselves. We're trying to build muscle. And that would be a little bit higher weight at lower reps. This is typically where we tend to fall. Most of us in the general population, when we're trying to build muscle, and me as a physical therapist, when I am working with my clients, I am falling in this range. I'm trying to work on muscle hypertrophy. And generally, this is a type of weight that you could use for maybe 3 sets, and you're doing possibly 8 to 10 repetitions of each set. So when you're looking at how to use weights exactly, you want one thing to be is, what is your goal? Is your goal for endurance or is your goal for muscle hypertrophy? And I'm going to talk more as we go along what I believe is a really great goal to have. That's going to work around muscle hypertrophy, why that's important. But just know that that is a difference on why you would do a certain amount of reps and sets. Okay, then also we're moving into now what isn't so much the general population, but more into people who are really, really working on heavy weightlifting or even athletes. You'll see people working at maximum strength, and that means doing just 1 or 2 reps as heavy as possible, and that's all they can do before the muscles fatigue. So some people are working at absolute maximum strength and only able to do 1 or 2 repetitions before fatigue, and they can't do any more. Then you'll see people working as well on explosive movements using resistance training. So that is really getting into the power. And you can picture an athlete, especially like a professional basketball player who's really trying to power up and dunk that basketball. That's going to work on power. And then you can look at how things are done. So I kind of mentioned doing that very traditional 3 sets of maybe 8 repetitions. Then there's a whole way of training called circuit training, and this is where I tend to land, where I'm going to do a weight that feels right to me that I can possibly do around like that 3 sets of 8 repetitions. But I am going through things without stopping. So I'm moving from a squat straight to an arm press, back to the squat, back to the arm press. A circuit training just means that you can almost picture these little different stations that you've set up, and you are moving from one to another without resting in between. So you're resting maybe your squat, but you're not resting your entire body because you're moving straight from one thing to another. I think there are benefits to both, but if you are brand new to using weights, then you want to kind of picture and fall into that category of really that traditional kind of 2 or 3 sets of maybe 8 to 10 repetitions, and you're resting in between each one. That's going to give you a place to really reorganize your body, grab a drink of water, get yourself reset, and then start again. It just gives you really a chance to kind of reorganize yourself. And then the next step, how I train people in my unlimited program, and again, kind of one-on-one, I move from that traditional place to more of that either circuit training or what I like to call combination and dynamic movements, where we're adding a lunge with a bicep curl. I'm adding things together because there's a lot of benefit to training the body in that way as well. So don't get too caught up in all of these rules. I just wanted you to understand kind of the vast options that are out there when we say resistance training. And I really want it to open up possibilities for you. I want you to be able to picture yourself in these paradigms. I don't want you to think, oh, I can't do that power piece, so I'm never going to lift weights. Absolutely not. That's not the case. That power piece is really there for probably a few people out there working on really specific skills and sports. Most of us, again, listening to this podcast today, are going to fit more into this traditional paradigm. So if you're already asking yourself or speaking to the podcast and asking me, Jessica, why in the world is this important? I'm happy with my Pilates and my walking. Why in the world would I add weights or resistance? I don't need to do this. Well, don't worry. We're going to cover all of the many benefits that have been proven by science, the benefits of resistance training. But right now, what I want you to know before we even move on to anything else is that strength training is one of the most functional things that you can do in your workout. And this is coming from someone who has taught and done Pilates for 20 years. I have to tell you that strength training and teaching yourself how to lift weights and use that resistance is going to have absolute optimal benefits when it comes to you simply living your life. A typical bag of groceries weighs a minimum of 10 pounds and all the way up to 35 pounds sometimes, depending on how really full that you stuff those bags. If you are a gardener, right? If you're an avid gardener and you are pushing a wheelbarrow around or lugging bags of mulch around, you are lifting upwards of 30 or 40 pounds. You are pushing and pulling. If you are a new mom lifting a car seat with a baby in it, you are lifting up to 30 and 40 pounds. You are doing this on a daily basis. So then to tell yourself that you don't want to do resistance training or you're only going to lift 1 or 2 pounds when you're lifting for your arms, it doesn't translate. We are not setting ourselves up for success in life. We're not setting our bodies up and giving ourselves the tools we need to prevent injury if we are not incorporating lifting weights and doing resistance training throughout the week. So again, we're going to cover more benefits, but I really, really want to touch on that to say why it's so important. I want you to start to feel that ownership over why learning how to lift weights in a regular, sustained, safe place is going to really help you long-term through life itself. Okay, so let's hit some myths that are typical around resistance training. And really, this is more about that kind of barbell, dumbbell, weights kind of piece, okay? I think a lot of us now are kind of familiar with resistance bands. If you have ever been through any kind of physical therapy, you probably have a bag full of bands floating around your house somewhere that possibly are disintegrating at this point. I work with so many clients who pull out the bands and say, which color do you want? I have every color under the sun. So resistance bands are a little more typical, but for most of you listening, you might be familiar with this kind of film that's over the gym or really heavy weights. And unfortunately, one of those myths is that it is just for men. And I really hope that we have pounded that myth into the ground at this point. I hope that you have some examples of some really strong women that you either follow or that are in your life, or really you might look in the mirror and see yourself there. You might be one of those really strong women. And I just mean strong from an inner place, that you have that confidence that you can walk into the gym. You know how to use the machines, you know how to lift weights. So I hope that we have really kind of gotten rid of and shattered that idea that weights are for men only. But that is a myth that is still out there. Unfortunately, I have seen it in healthcare. I've seen it from doctors. I have seen it all over the world. And I really want to shatter that right now. So if you have any idea in your head, any little inkling or any little voice that's still telling you from years ago that the gym or lifting weights are only for men, get rid of it. Smash it. Let it go. It is not true. Women lift weights. Another myth, and this is actually one that I probably hear the most, is that lifting weights will bulk you up. And I am not sure exactly where this came from, but the consensus nowadays is that it is absolutely just not true. It is true that some people's bodies are different than others. All of us are made a little differently. Some people respond to resistance training quicker than other people's bodies do. Some people respond to Pilates faster than other bodies do. We are truly all different. Just yesterday, I was talking to a client about how he is really stiff. He was laughing about it. I am just so stiff. I've never been able to touch my toes. My wife, on the other hand, is bendy as can be, and she can touch everything and move in all different places. And we are working to get both of them back to the center. We want to get him a little bit more flexible. We want to work with her to get her a little bit stronger in the flexibility she has. But I will never be able to make them exactly the same because they were simply born differently. Some of us are. So there will be some of you who do lift weights and you see the muscle hypertrophy a little bit quicker than others. But that is all you're seeing. You're seeing the fact that you are building muscle a little bit quicker or more efficiently than someone else will. But please let go of the idea that you will bulk up by adding any kind of resistance training to your workout. You truly, and again, this is research-based, you would have to be lifting a lot of weight and really working on that. Like we are talking those low reps, as heavy as you can go. You would really have to be working into that place to have that idea of bulking up, which I'm saying in air quotes. I wish you could see it, but it's in air quotes. If we are working in that functional place of lifting 8 pounds, 10 pounds, 12 pounds, you do not have to think at all about that idea of bulking up. So please let that go. Don't let it hold you back at all from adding resistance training to your workout. Another myth that's out there is that resistance training can only be done at the gym. And that too, hopefully nowadays, with everything you can see on social media, with my YouTube channel, with all the things that are available to you to buy and have at home, hopefully you understand that there's so many ways to get resistance training that do not involve those big machines at the gym. So me personally, I love resistance training. I have lifted weights for a while now and incorporate it. And I only have at home, I have one resistance band. I have a resistance loop that I use. I have 3 sets of dumbbells. I have a barbell with some plates. And then I have 2 kettlebells. All right, that's what I have at home. And that I consider that actually quite a bit. That's plenty for me. And that is on the high side. You don't even need all of those things. And all of those things are things I have bought on Amazon or at Target and gotten here at home. And so you really can have a great resistance training plan at home without a lot of investment, without a lot of equipment, and without a lot of space needed. To be honest, I wish I could give you a tour, maybe someday I will, of underneath my bed upstairs in our bedroom, because underneath our bed we have kettlebells and weights and foam rollers and resistance bands just stuffed under there. And we pull them out when we need to. So literally, it is not fancy. It's not a lot of space, but it's perfect for what I need 2 to 3 times a week. And then what I have found is as I've gotten stronger and more confident and more excited with my resistance training, as it's become more fun, I have found myself wanting to go to the gym a little bit more to experiment and try heavier weights or just do different things. So you might find yourself getting there, but I consider that just an extra. It is not needed at all. Everything that I need can be done at home with very minimal equipment. And then the final myth I want to address is that strength training just isn't needed. I talk to a lot of people who really have that thought that, well, I'm really active. I am so active and busy. I'm on the Peloton 7 days a week. I am really busy and active in my life. I'm hiking, I ski, I do a lot around the house. I do Pilates and get on the reformer 3 days a week. I don't need that. And I am going to call this out for what it is. It is absolutely a myth. And when you hear the benefits I'm about to go through of resistance training, hopefully you'll start to understand and just see that it is a different form of exercise. I am not telling you to get rid of any of those things that you love to do. Keep them. It's important. And also, it is so important to add resistance training. Simply as a physical therapist, if you are a runner running 6 days a week, if you're an endurance athlete, I'm going to tell you the best way that you can prevent injury and to get stronger in your running is to add some strength training 2 or 3 days a week. Let's add some core work. Let's add some strength training. It is absolutely important and imperative if you are doing some of those other activities that you include resistance training as well. Okay, so let's cover some benefits, and there are a lot of them. And again, these are all science-backed, okay? There are many, multiple research studies out there that help support all of these claims and the benefits around resistance training. So one is that it will make you stronger, right? That just sounds very simple, but it is true. Research shows us that resistance training is going to build your muscle. It's going to hypertrophy your muscles. It's going to help your muscle mass and make you stronger, which is absolutely necessary, especially as we age. We start to lose muscle mass at a very fast pace, and we need to be doing some resistance training to help combat that. Another benefit, and hopefully this will help you if you still have kind of that idea or that myth that strength training is going to bulk you up. Strength training and resistance training actually burns calories more efficiently than other activities. So by building that muscle, you actually will end up burning more calories in the 72 hours after you lift than simply doing a cardio workout. So by lifting weights, by doing resistance training for 20 or 30 minutes that one day, you're actually going to burn more calories at rest. Your metabolic rate increases. So even when you're done and you're resting, you're going to burn more, and you're going to burn more calories in the 72 hours after that workout. Strength training and resistance training also has been shown to help reduce abdominal fat. So some of that stubborn abdominal fat that we can gain, again, especially as we age, and I can attest to this as being in perimenopause, some of that abdominal fat that just kind of starts to come on. Research has shown us that resistance training can help reduce that abdominal fat. Resistance training also lowers your risk of injury. I touched on this when I was talking about endurance athletes, but absolutely, it is probably one of the number one things I use in my PT clients when I talk to people and we're trying to work on reducing a risk of injury, helping protect a body part. My program is almost always going to include some Pilates and some weights. And that is it. We can keep it simple, but those two things are so important, and there's so many benefits to adding those. But resistance training has really been shown to help lower your risk of injury in other activities. Another benefit is that it improves balance. This is a huge one. Again, as we age, our risk of falls goes up substantially. And by resistance training, by strength training, by building those muscles, especially in the back body, and I mean the glutes and the hamstrings and the back, by working those and improving your balance, it shows that we reduce our risk for falls. With that, resistance training also strengthens our bones, which then decreases our risk of osteoporosis. So lifting weights, adding that resistance is one of the best ways that you can help strengthen your bones, help prevent osteoporosis. Another benefit to resistance training is actually it improves your brain health itself. It has been shown to improve cognitive function. Those are things like recall, like memory, like problem solving and processing. So strength training has a big benefit when it comes to our brain health and helping then prevent cognitive decline as we age. Along with that, resistance training has been shown to help our mood. It can help your mood. It can help anxiety. It can help feelings of sadness. So again, this is research backed. And I believe all of exercise does that. So please keep that in mind. And you can go back. One of my most popular episodes involves anxiety and stress and how movement can be used to help in those areas of anxiety and chronic stress. So if you find yourself in that place, go back and listen to that episode. And I do want to throw it out there that research really does show us that all forms of exercise can help in that area of mood and anxiety and stress. And resistance training is one of those. The final benefit I want to touch on is actually the most personal to me and the one that really encompasses one of the main reasons I support resistance training in all of my clients, and that is self-confidence. I truly believe movement has the ability to change how we feel about ourselves, which then can change how we present in the world and to those around us, to our kids, to our partners, to our coworkers and our friends and our families. I'm going to tell you how I got into weight training and resistance training. So I was a soccer player my entire life, and I mean from kindergarten through college. I played soccer, and I didn't even know really what resistance training was. Probably in high school, a couple times we went to the high school gym and maybe did a leg press. I don't even know. I don't remember anything like that. I remember being in college thinking, maybe I should go to the gym and not knowing how to do it. And so I didn't. And I was still at a place where, right, you're in college and I didn't even worry about it. Then I got into physical therapy school and started learning more. I learned about the muscles. I could tell you anatomically what was going on. I could tell you what an eccentric contraction was and a concentric contraction. I could do some stuff at home. I was doing Taibo in front of the TV. All of that stuff was happening, and I still was not comfortable stepping into a gym. When I did, occasionally I went into the gym on the college campus where I was going to physical therapy school, and I went straight to the cardio machines. I went straight to walk on the treadmill. I went straight to the Stairmaster. I was of the mindset, one, that, okay, sweating's the best thing I can do. I'll just read this magazine. I'll sweat for an hour, and that's all I need to do for my body. I probably was raised in a household where people just didn't lift weights, especially women. So I still had that in my brain a little bit. But also, I was intimidated. I did not know what to do with these machines. I didn't know how to switch them for my height and my size. I didn't know how to use them. I saw other people getting on and off easily, and I just didn't want to look stupid sitting on that machine, changing it around for my size. That's what I thought in my head. So I just didn't do it. Then kept going into my career, became a physical therapist. I would kind of use the machines at the clinic a little bit afterwards. And then I got a job. My second job out of my clinic was at a very high-end gym here in Denver. And I was in charge of the Pilates and physical therapy program there. I was 23 years old, I believe. And it was, again, a high-end, really nice gym. And one of the requirements for working there was to learn everything the gym had to offer. So basically, I was required to go to some spin classes. I was required to work with a personal trainer. I was required to do the aerobics classes and yoga classes, everything. I needed to do it so I could understand it and sell it to other people. So I worked with a personal trainer, and that changed everything for me. One session where I could say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to use these machines. I don't know. And talk about intimidating. This gym was full of high power people in suits coming in, doing their workout. It was not a super comfortable place for me as a girl to be when I didn't know what I was doing. But I told this personal trainer that I worked with someone who was very wonderful with where I was at. And he created a program for me in 1 or 2 sessions, created a program for me, and I just did that program. So for the next year, I would say, I just did that program, put my headphones on at lunch, and I just did that. And then little by little, I started to feel stronger, different than when I did Pilates. Pilates is my heart and soul. And again, listen to the Pilates episode and you'll know that. Pilates is my heart and soul and is the foundation of everything else I do. There was something about feeling truly stronger in my muscles, being able to know which dumbbells to choose and what I could lift. There was something that changed in my self-confidence, in my body, and my ability to carry myself around other people, at the gym, all of the things. And that was the start for me. So it really was twofold. One, I needed to get past my intimidation that everybody was looking at me, everyone was judging me. Okay, you'll hear all of us say it. That's not true. Nobody's paying attention to you because they're all too busy paying attention to themselves. So that's one thing. Don't worry about it. And it's easier for me to say now, but I was at that place where I did worry about it. Absolutely. So I was able to get over that. And then two, I was able to start to learn the verbiage a little bit. And I think that's a big piece that can be intimidating is what is a bicep curl? What do you mean by shoulder press? What do you mean by dumbbell versus barbell? What weight do I choose? Those kind of things can be hard at first. And once you start to be able to know, oh, no, I get 8 pounds for that. I'm going to try 10 pounds for that. And, oh, actually, the 10 was too heavy. I'm going to go back. Once you feel safe in your body and you're able to make those choices, there is confidence that comes from that. And so I will sing it from the mountaintops, and I will say it as long as I am here on this planet, that lifting weights, especially for women, and I have a heart for confidence with women when they're working on their bodies. I just want you to believe that you can do it. That's all. This has nothing to do with a scale. This has nothing to do with your jean size. It has nothing to do with if you ever choose to wear a swimsuit. This has to do with you being able to walk on that airplane and take your luggage and put it in the overhead bin without being worried about what's going to happen. This is the confidence that you can take that car seat out of the car and you have the strength so that you're not going to injure your back. That's the kind of confidence I want you to have. I want you to have confidence and safety in the body that you walk around in on this planet because you deserve that. And I truly believe adding weights is a big piece to being able to add that confidence. And that can be at home. It doesn't have to be a story like mine. Mine was unique because I was working at a gym. I had the support system to be able to do it. I didn't have kids yet. I wasn't leaving kids at home. I worked in a gym. I wasn't having to leave my house to go drive to the gym. It was my job. I was very privileged in that way to be able to learn and be able to build confidence in that way. But honestly, that is now why I have so many workouts with weights for you to do at home. Because I don't want you to feel like you have to go to the gym. And I don't want you to have to lose 2 hours of your day. You don't have that time. None of us do. You only need 10 to 20 minutes of weights to start with. And in the links below in the description of the podcast, I will leave a few of my beginner weight workouts that I have on YouTube that are perfect to start with. So that is exactly how I would start to incorporate weights, is using those workouts below. So I recommend, in general, in a really good fitness program, that you are picking up weights 2 to 3 times a week. 2 minimum, 3 is great if you're able to do it. And I'll tell you how I do it. I typically have 2 dedicated workouts a week that are resistance training, where I am picking up weights and I'm focusing on those kind of movements. And then my third day, I do have resistance training, but that's when I might incorporate some bands and some resistance loops, and I might actually do a Pilates with some weights. So I'm doing more maybe untraditional kind of thing. It's more me just having fun, but making sure I'm adding some resistance. I'm doing some body weight things, like maybe I'll try some push-ups. Maybe I'll even do a handstand on those days. So that's how I do it, is I do more of that traditional workout with weights 2 times a week. And then I'm throwing in resistance definitely on a third day, but I'm doing it more as like a combination with some Pilates and some other things with bands and loops. So definitely start with 2 times, and I highly recommend 3 if you're able to do it. Now, if you're getting started at home and you're wondering, well, where in the world do I start? What should I buy? I recommend a resistance band, and I like the tubing personally. So if you do only have the things that your PT has given you in the past year, and it's just some of those TheraBands, I recommend investing in a tubing, maybe even with some handles. And I'll put links to these below too. They are not expensive whatsoever. So I'll put some links below, but I would do a tube and then maybe even a resistance loop. I have some workouts on Unlimited with a resistance loop that I really like for hip muscles, but those are the only bands you really need. And bands come in handy too when you travel. Every time I travel, I throw either the resistance loop or the band into my luggage because obviously it's really easy to bring them with me. I don't need a lot of space and I can do them when I'm traveling. Then when it comes to dumbbells, I again recommend everybody have some at home, and I recommend 2 sets if you're just getting started. If you are brand new to weights, I would do a 3-pound and a 5-pound. Okay. If you are a little bit farther along, I recommend an 8 and a 10. So either way, I want you to have 2 sets. Now, keep in mind, if you're just starting, I definitely want you at 8 or 10 eventually. And then if you feel like, gosh, I want to go heavier, I definitely recommend you're at 15 eventually. But that's a good idea of where to start. And you heard me say earlier that a typical bag of groceries is going to be a minimum of maybe 8 to 10 pounds. I also encourage you to start with 3s if that's where you have to start. If you have never lifted weights in kind of a regular program before, you really might feel plenty with 3, and that's okay. I am encouraging you there. I also want you to keep your horizons broad. I don't want you to stay in that box. I want you to give yourself a way out of the box that when you feel ready, when 3s are a little bit easier, I want you to have the confidence that you can move to 5s. And then I want you to have the confidence that you can move to 8s too. All right, so start wherever you need to start, and I highly encourage it, and own it. And then also don't box yourself in. You're not going to stay at that point. I want everyone to be able to lift an 8-pound weight eventually. Okay, that is the minimum where I believe we should be for function in life eventually. And also, when you're starting out, a lot of people ask, well, how do I know when to move on or when to increase weight? So let's say that you're doing kind of a traditional set of that. Okay, I'm doing 3 sets of 8 repetitions. That means you're doing it 8 times, rest, same move 8 times, rest, same move 8 times, rest, and then you move on. That would be 3 sets of 8. So let's just say you're doing a bicep curl and you're doing it 3 pounds to start with, and that feels about right. And then eventually in a month, it feels a little bit easier. And you say, awesome, I'm going to move to 5 pounds. But you do, and you can't get through 2 sets. You're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have moved on. That is not true. Absolutely, it was time to move on. But how you progress is you do 1 set with the heavier weight and then do the other 2 sets with the lighter weight. You won't be able to jump from all the sets at 3 to all the sets at 5, most likely. You're going to need to do a little at a time, and that's a great way to improve. So as we wrap up, your homework is to find some resistance training items that you can use at home. Those 2 sets of dumbbells and a resistance band. Check out my beginner workouts below. Try to add them 2 to 3 times a week. And more than anything, believe in yourself and your ability to do this. Keep it simple. Don't make it too complicated. Have fun with it and give it a month of regular use, even 6 weeks, and see if your strength and your confidence starts to improve. I can't wait to see. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining me today on Meet Your Body. If you have a moment, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast as it helps us tremendously. For more resources and workouts, you can visit my website, jessicavalantpilates.com, or find me on YouTube or Instagram at Jessica Valant Pilates.